Hello everyone, welcome to my review for High Guardian Spice. High Guardian Spice is a show that came out on Crunchyroll last week. A Crunchyroll original. And getting there was quite a journey. This series was announced as the first Crunchyroll original over 3 years ago. And to say that original reveal was met with a lukewarm reception would be putting it very lightly. People had a lot of problems with how they were rolling this out, specifically with the fact that why the fuck is a show like this airing on Crunchyroll, of all places? Do you really think the people watching Boruto and Demon Slayer? But they also didn't really do a good job of selling this show to us. They gave us a very bland and generic synopsis, then just went on about how diverse their crew was, and how, oh, it's so great that we're doing 2D animation. Remember 2D animation, guys? And I'm like, you're on fucking Crunchyroll, what are you talking about? And yeah, after that whole thing, we don't hear anything for like over a year. And that's when I stepped in to make a video, because I was really curious as to what the fuck happened to it. And in that video, I also said I would review it when it eventually did come out. So here we are, fuck. But shortly after I made that video, the creator of the show actually did confirm that it had wrapped production. So when we got that news, I was like, oh shit, it's probably almost here. Could come out any day now. So here we are 3 years after it was announced, 2 years after it was completed. Crunchyroll has finally released it. Let's give it a go. Because if you remember originally, while I wasn't too, impressed with how they revealed it, I was still going to give it the benefit of the doubt. And now I have seen all 12 episodes, so let's talk about it. High Guardian Spice is a magical fantasy series that follows 4 girls who attend the High Guardian Academy. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Get it, guys? It's like the song. It's like the song! So yeah, they go to magic school to learn magic and how to fight and other stuff. And, their goal is to become a guardian, which is a magical, mystical, cool protector of the land or something. We're going to talk about the story first, then I'll talk about the technical aspects after. And the story, from how I understood it, kind of has 2 sections. The first 7 or 8 episodes or so are mostly just magical school slice of life. And it was probably the most boring thing I have seen since, I've been watching the Platinum End anime. So that's not It was just boring, okay? It was really lame. We see the girls go about their school lives as they attend classes, learn lessons, have, romance, and learn morals and shit. And there's nothing else to it. There was nothing interesting about this. If you've seen Harry Potter, you've seen literally every aspect of this before. You see, magic schools are a trope that has been done to death at this point, but people still love magic schools, and they're still coming to new stories that have them. And it's because these new stories actually do something interesting with the concept, present something unique or new. Mashal has a very stereotypical, traditional magic school, but of course the main character just beats shit up. It's a funny twist on the premise, people love it. The Owl House is another great show about a magic school that has a really, really cool and engaging story, and it has a very unique magic system, which makes things, feel completely fresh. High Guardian Spice doesn't have any of that. This is all stuff we've seen before. The magic system feels very underdeveloped. They have, like old traditional magic about, mixing shit, and then there's new magic, which can apparently just do everything and fix all your problems, and I had no idea how any of it worked. And, while all these stories I mentioned have school slice of life stuff, they also have these overarching stories that, make you want to keep reading and make you care about the characters. The High Guardian Spice doesn't start with that, it just pulls you right into the slice of life stuff, and it's all so bland that you really don't care about anything that's going on. Now, nothing was really offensively bad. I mean, I cringed a few times during the romance parts, but it was mostly just, I didn't care about anything that was happening. And part of the reason for that might be that it's a baby show. Like, a show for babies, like actual babies, which I wasn't expecting going in, because in episode 1 they hit us with this baby. A fucking content warning. I have never seen a content warning on Crunchyroll before. Going into this, I was really, honestly expecting it to turn into Invincible. Just have a huge gory twist and then it would actually be an adult show. But no, This is not an adult show at all. The dialogue here is very basic and generic. It does really feel like it was written for smaller children. You've probably already seen one of the biggest examples of this. A lot of people are talking about it. This show, of course, has a lot of LGBT representation, which I do think is very commendable. And when it comes to the same-sex relationships in this show, they do the good thing where, you know, it's just there and they treat it as normal. That's how this type of stuff should be. It's what they do in the Owl House, and it's great. But when it comes to the transgender characters, they go on like these big tangents talking about it, and it feels like you're kind of being talked down to, like you're not supposed to know what this is, like it's this whole fantasy magical concept that they're just explaining to you like they would on fucking Sesame Street. This is really how a lot of this story feels. And so you ask, why is there a content warning? Well, now we get into the final third. This is when stuff actually starts happening. They introduce some villains who are out to get our main characters, and they have some, you know, battles. You know, the stakes are relatively high, you know. And I will say it is a lot better than the slice of life stuff. But that's like saying Eclipse is better than New Moon. Because the show did a bad job setting up its characters, not making you care about anything that was going on, you continue to not care when stuff is actually happening, when the stakes are high. Oh no, the blonde one got turned to stone. Oh no, the cat girl is doing stuff. Oh no. It just continues to feel like a really bland, boring kids action show. Something that when you were a dumb kid, you would just watch if it was on, and then you never think about it again. But here's the thing. The content warning. The final episodes is when things start to get a bit more extreme in terms of its swearing, its violence. There is actually a surprising amount of blood in the series, and there are a few, you know, dick jokes and innuendos here. The show isn't funny, by the way. It probably goes without saying, but yeah, it's not. And these elements were very, very confusing to me. Because like I said, this feels like a kid's show. In fact, I think the way that they should have gone with this was to, you know, actually have it be a kid's show and shop it to, you know, a children's network. But instead they decided to add all of this content in it that would not be suitable for younger kids. And I don't really get it. I think what they were going for here, what their target demographic was essentially adults who like the Owl House. Because a lot of adults still like Disney and Cartoon Network shows. I mean, I do. I still like a bunch of them. So they wanted to make something that, you know, it kind of resembles that. It's all cutesy and, you know, kids can watch it. But this one was a bit edgier because it knows it's mostly adults watching. You know, we can have some blood, we can have some swearing, innuendo. But they failed to understand the reason why adults still like some of these shows. It's because they treat their audience with respect. They don't talk down to kids. They're not afraid to have some mature themes there. And they're always written in such a way to keep people of all ages invested. Like when the Owl House has a non-binary character or something, they're just there. They don't take you aside to be like, okay, kids, let's have a big talk about gender identity. Because people doesn't need that. The kids aren't idiots, and here you have mostly adults watching this, and you're treating them like idiots. But also on that note, I still find it kind of weird that it had a content warning. Because, you know, when it comes to violence and language and stuff, most shonen anime are worse, and they don't have content warnings. It almost feels like the only reason the content warning there is because of some of the transgender stuff. And, like, I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but if it is, yikes. Anyway, yeah, so they introduce like a villain in the final episode. They have a big fight. It ends. It was lame, and I've already forgotten most of the details. Although I will say they do have some balls because they actually ended this season on a very sizable cliffhanger. I mean, I didn't give a shit about it, of course, but like if someone were invested in this story, it would be a pretty jaw-dropping moment. And I'm quite confident this is not getting a season 2. So, you know, kudos to them anyway, at least trying. Anyways, yeah, so the story was just very boring and mediocre. Again, nothing offensively terrible about it. If I had a child who could handle blood and wanted to watch it, I'd be like, yeah, sure, knock yourself out. It was just a really weird experience. Also weird is the technical aspects of this series. So of course they went with a more cartoony style. A lot of people are instantly turned off by stuff like this. Of course I am not, because I enjoy a lot of shows that look all silly and goofy with big curvy shapes and whatever. So that part didn't really bother me. I don't really care for the character designs here, but you know, the art style was fine. And if you take stills from the show, it mostly looks fine. Mostly. But you see, the thing with character designs like this is they're usually in, you know, these Disney Cartoon Network shows. They have a lot of money put into them because, you know, they're big companies. And the animation's usually pretty fluid. Like, they might be using puppet rigs or whatever. But if you're on the Disney Channel, you can generally expect a certain level of quality. And here, it's clear they didn't have as many resources as those shows do. And they try to imitate a more anime style where, you know, it's a bit more choppy, a bit less frames because, you know, anime has more detailed character models or whatever. So it ends up looking pretty weird a lot of the time. It's definitely serviceable for the most part, though. There weren't many moments that stood out to me as completely terrible. I mean, the people working on this know how to animate, but it is definitely a mixed bag, especially when it comes to some of the more, you know, transformation scenes, action scenes. Because here it just seems like a lot like wasted potential. Like, it's clear that talented people did work on this show. There are like a few seconds and clips here or there where I was actually surprised. I'm like, oh hey, that actually looked really cool. But then it is almost immediately undercut by something looking stiff, stilted, and awkward in comparison that kind of just takes you out of it. Stuff like the lip syncing could sometimes be off. The compositing, you know, putting the characters on the backgrounds could also be off. Overall, it just felt like a very sloppy production. One that definitely had talent behind it, but I don't think it had the proper direction to take out the full potential of its artists. I think the backgrounds generally looked pretty good. I didn't think like the environment design was anything crazy or anything. It was still pretty boring and bland. But it's clear they did put a lot of effort into some of these. However, they do one of the weirdest things I've ever fucking seen in an animated show, where some of these scenes are populated with stock images. Not cartoon stock images, like actual real life stock images. How the fuck did this happen? Like, it's so baffling to me. I don't get it. Was buying a PNG of a bread, like, really the way to go? You couldn't just be like, hey, artist who works for us, can you just, like, take 5 minutes to draw bread? Because it's, you know, it's fucking bread. And they'd be like, all right, yeah, sure. I can draw bread. Of course, it's fucking bread. I'm at a loss for words. Don't know what fucking happened here. Now, on the audio side of things, again, we have a bit of a mixed bag. The voice actors, some of them do their best. I don't think they really had the best direction here, but for the most part, they sound fine. The voice actor and YouTuber ProZD plays a bully who's like super transphobic. And that was the one point in the show that actually made me laugh, just because of how over the top his character was. What do you mean? I don't like boys, that's icky. Ugh. However, there are definitely some performances that were really bad. They stuck out like a sore thumb here. Maybe that's why I don't think most of the voice acting was bad, because these ones just like made everything else look better, but yikes, man. And overall, just the audio mixing of this show was not very good. I'm not an audio guy, I can't really pick apart all the technical aspects, but it definitely did not sound very professional, and there's another aspect that took me out of it. And yeah, that's probably all I have to say. That was High Guardian Spice. Honestly, not as bad as it could have been, but still very far from being something I enjoyed. But at the end of the day, it's out. It's here, it's done. I doubt they're going to make any more, and I don't really think it's worth getting upset about any longer. You know, I understood it when this was, like, you know, the only Crunchyroll original they had announced. I mean, that was just a disaster. But since then, they have actually produced anime that has gotten pretty popular, and they're continuing to do so. And this series, it ended production 2 years ago. They kind of just shit it out because they had to. I don't think you need to worry about Crunchyroll going down this path. It doesn't seem likely to me at all at this point. It just seems like a weird piece of animated history that will probably fade into obscurity soon. I just found it to be very dull and boring. The animation wasn't anything to write home about. It was just lame. it was just lame. That'll be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have watched High Guardian Spice as well, I'd love to know your thoughts on it in the comments. And I will see you all soon. I think we're doing a collection video next. How about that? And in the meantime, go watch The Owl House, because I actually do. I really like that show. I like Hootie a lot. I think I've mentioned that before. Yeah.
This is the final stand. The power's in your hand. Two worlds collide on the inside. You gotta fight for one.